You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! Jedediah Berry, born in 1977, is an American writer known for his imaginative and thought-provoking novels. He is the author of The Manual of Detection and his latest book, The Naming Song. Berry resides in Western Massachusetts, where he runs Ninepin Press, an independent publisher of fiction, poetry, and games alongside his partner, writer Emily Houk. The Naming Song is a gorgeously imaginative fantasy that explores a world where meaning and words hold immense power. The story follows an unnamed courier of the Names Committee who embarks on a journey to find her long-lost sister, uncovering deep secrets and facing dangerous truths along the way. This book is perfect for anyone who dreams of a stranger, freer, and more magical world. Please put your hands together and welcome Jedediah to the show. So thank you so much, Jedediah, for joining me on today's show. And I am so excited to dive right into your newest book, The Naming Song. But before we do, as is my tradition, we are going to toast to a fantastic show. And so I have, well, it looks like it was a Cosmopolitan that sat a little long. So
I mean, it still looks very refreshing.
it is. And what do you have on your end?
I have some just some black tea. So yeah, here we are.
Now,
Cheers.
do you sweeten with honey, or what do you sweeten with, or do you take it just black tea plain?
I do a little sugar, a little milk, and it's a strong black tea called Clipper. And you know, I'm not much of a coffee drinker, but I do like my tea on the strong side.
Nice. Well, here we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. So, I said to you before we came on air that the Naming Song is by far one of the most unusual, fantastic book that I've ever read. And it took me a minute, I think, because I did it. I'm one of those readers. I don't read the inside jacket. I like to catch things as they are. So it took me a minute to catch on what was going on, but once I did, I was all in.
Okay.
So tell the readers a little bit about why this book and why now? Like, what makes now an important time for the Naming Song to be birthed?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I also am someone who doesn't read the jacket. You know, if I hear a little bit about a book, that's fine, but I love to just jump right in to see what the writer really has to say. And I know that it is a book with a premise that takes a minute. And so I try to take the beginning a little slow and get readers used to the strange world that they're entering into. But the naming song takes place after this apocalyptic event which removes language from the world. And the main character is a courier working for something called the Names Committee. And so it is her job to deliver words back to things that need them. She's putting words and language back. And it's interesting. I spent a long time working on this book, and I felt like various things going on in the world passing into it in different ways over the course of those years. And one thing that I felt very strongly as I was working on it was that when I think about so many of the troubles that we're in our very real world, I think about breakdowns of language. I think about how like the importance of communication, the importance of understanding one another. And so this is about a book, where language really did go away and where everything truly fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is about, on the one hand, like rebuilding communication, but also trying to build a better world. That the one that's coming in this world is not necessarily perfect, and so people are trying to make things better.
Wonderful. I know that you grew up with fantasy as being a very relevant part of your childhood. Tell us how that fit into you writing this book and first just coming up with the decision to write the naming song.
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in the little town of Catskill, New York, in the Hudson Valley, and uh, grew up hearing the stories of Washington Irving, like Rip Van Winkle and the Headless Horseman, the Sleepy Hollow, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and those stories were just in my mind when I was very young because they took place in that area, and Catskill is, mentioned at the beginning of Rip Van Winkle, but I didn't really know they were fiction. Like in my
Uh-huh.
mind,
They
there was
were
this
real.
man. Yeah, they were real. Like there was this man who went up into the mountains and fell asleep for 20 years. And there was this, maybe headless horseman riding around who you could meet on a dark road. Um, and in a way, like I think my mom was like also just very encouraging of me and my imaginative life. I
Uh-huh.
was so lucky for that. And she was a reader and a storyteller. And all that stuff just stayed in my head, and now I've been writing kind of fantasy of various kinds for a long time now. And this book, I mean, when I got into writing this book, it was like, all right, I want to write an adventure story, and then it also became a story about family, and obviously a story about words, so
Uh-huh.
it's kind of a story about stories at the same time.
Nice. Now, growing up with storytelling is such a vital part of your childhood. Have you passed that on to your children? Are they the recipients of all of this storytelling, and how are they with receiving all of this?
Yeah, this is such an exciting thing for me because I'm a pretty new parent. My daughter is about to turn a year and a half, and
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it is wonderful, and so much to keep up with, and she is incredible. And so she's really just at the point where she's using words now, and picking up language, and she loves books. And I love, like, reading to her is just that, like, the happiest thing. So yeah, I'm so excited to make that part of her life. And I feel like it's succeeding. Last night, my partner and I were having dinner, and our daughter was like finished. And as soon as she was done with dinner, she went and grabbed a book from a shelf and sat
Uh-huh.
on a little cardboard box in the kitchen and just started paging through it and laughing and making animal sounds. It was just fantastic. So
Oh,
I love seeing that.
that has to be so thrilling. My daughters are 36 and 38.
Yeah.
And I read to them every night until they moved out. Like I would read novels and I would just sit in the hallway between their rooms and just read. If they listened to me or not, that was on them. I just felt that that was something so um, important to me for them to hear my voice right at the end of the evening. And later, talking to my older daughter, Jessica, I realized that she was, in fact, listening. So please
Yeah.
listen, you guys keep reading to her
Right.
every single night, even if you think she's listening or not.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that. Yes.
Yes. Now, can you share more about the mythology that you developed in naming the book, the naming song?
Yes. So for a long time, I had a different title for the book, actually, and it wasn't the right title. I was stuck on that for quite a while, and it was only once we were in the editorial process, my editor and I were kind of knocking around ideas, and finally I came up with the naming song. The mythology in the book, so there was this event which made language go away, but one of the weird things about this is that, of course, the people in the book can't even really talk about that event because they don't have the words for it. They don't
Mm-hmm,
really
mm-hmm,
know how to describe it. So there are some of the earliest stories that they tell, and they're about the people who began to speak again. There was this period called the silence, and then there were the first namers who came along, and they delivered some of the first words like hand and fire and moon, um, these basic building blocks. And the idea of a naming song was something I thought about. I thought, like, okay, if language is gone, like, how do you rebuild language? And I think one of those ways is probably song. Like,
mm-hmm.
singing is such a wonderful way to remember words and to pass them along. And so the children in the book, the idea is that they sing these naming songs in order to learn the new words as they come about, which is not so different from like our nursery rhymes or our fairy tales. Um, and then eventually I realized, that could really be the center of this thing. And so music has always been really important to me, and that goes through the book.
Wonderful. Now, how did you envision readers connecting with the world that you created? Because on one hand, there is that aspect that this could really happen, right? Like something traumatic could happen,
Right.
um, albeit if you think of it religiously or spiritually or just conspiracy theory or whatever it may be, right? Something of this magnitude could happen. What is it that you hope the reader walks away with?
Um, oh boy, it's that's such a hard question to answer because in a way it's like, you spend all this time working on a piece of writing, as I'm sure you've experienced, and you're trying to you're like trying to tell this story to yourself. You're trying to
Uh-huh.
make it everything you want it to be. And then like once it goes to the reader, it's so hard to know what they'll take away, right? Like it goes over this gulf and
It's theirs. It's the gift
yeah,
that's given.
right.
Once you get it, it's yours.
Absolutely right. And they may find something very different from what I thought was there. And that's great. Like if it kind of has multiple facets, that's really exciting. But I think, as I mentioned before, there's this aspect of the book that is about family. The main character, who's only referred to as the courier because she herself, in fact, does not have a name, she goes seeking her long lost sister in the course of the book. And that relationship is a really important one. But at the same time, she has to figure out parts of her personal past that she has to let go of, and also like find room for other people to be present. And it is a fantasy novel, so there are some strange people. There's a monster, there is a ghost, there is this animal companion that she has, and those people kind of become a new family of sorts for her. And it's about having a sort of flexible and so I think hopefully generous and open idea of what family can be.
You did a fantastic job of weaving together fantasy and adventure. At any one point, did you find yourself leaning more towards the adventure side and having to reel it in, or being completely lost in that fantasy side and say, okay, wait, we need some balance to this? What did you, how were you able to balance those two aspects who are very strong genres in and of themselves to balance them so well?
Yeah, that's a great question. The adventure part of it, in a way, provides some structure. It
Mm-hmm.
gives me a sense of movement. And a lot of this book takes place on trains, which in a way is great because you can have people interacting and getting to know each other, but they're also on the move and things are happening and they're seeing the world pass by, and going out into different places in the world. So trains became a really good way for me to have it both ways, I guess. And the fantastical, while it's kind of free ranging, eventually I think the reader will learn that there is a logic to it. It's maybe a dreamlike logic sometimes, but there are clear ideas about where monsters come from and why, and where ghosts come from and why. And and how language relates to all those things. And so as you kind of go on this adventure, the fantasy is also kind of weaving around it and providing this underlying logic.
Did you have a list of words in advance that you were going to introduce, or as the story evolved, different words came to you and you were like, oh, yeah, okay, I understand that one, or yes. And if
Right.
they came to you, were there any words that just did not make the cut that you had hoped would have been included in the story?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I mean, so one of the tricks I tried to pull off with this book is to have the narrator not use any words that have not yet been delivered. And so there's certain words that are absent from the book. And so what I had to keep track of, even more than books I was adding, were words that I was adding were words that were I was keeping out and they were absent. Um, and then finding the right moment sometimes to introduce them. And as words are introduced, the world is changing. Um, I did. I did stop myself from using, like, I tried to create a language for this book that is kind of spare and straightforward, which, especially when writing in such a sort of fantastical vein, I think it could be helpful, right? Like things are stated in pretty clear terms. And um, when I felt myself using sort of like words that are a little fancy or a little decorative or something, I would try to bring it back and like
Uh-huh.
keep it simple. Um, but then if I needed a word, if there was a word that I just couldn't do without, I remember like let's see, switchback was one of them, and trouble,
Uh-huh.
and there were a bunch of them. Then I would like mention when they got delivered, so that you would like think about them, and that word would become part of the fabric of the text. It's it was a really fun but also very difficult process, and a very big part of why it took me so long to write the naming song.
As the words were coming to you and you were introducing them, was there ever a time that you thought, oh, it, the way that I'm introducing it just isn't right. So let me go back and rewrite the way that that word was introduced.
Yeah, that did happen. I actually had this first part of the book that I wrote and rewrote for a very long time and eventually had to cut it completely. I realized it was just the wrong start. And it was supposed to be about delivering the word monster. And I finally realized, no, that's a word that actually needs to have been around for a long time
Right.
in order to write this. And so I skipped ahead in time and I changed the whole structure. Instead of starting with a sort of long scene like I had been doing, I instead like wrote a sort of year in the life of this character and jump around a lot and let you see different parts of the world. And once I got that, then it really clicked for me. So in a way that, yeah, the words and the structure really kind of came together in that sense.
What prompted the use of diviners and couriers as the conduits in which words were delivered?
Yeah, so I thought it would be fun to kind of divide up these tasks. So the courier, she has to have a word written down for her before she can deliver it. And the idea is she goes out into the world and finds this thing. So like one of the first words she delivers in the book, and this is not giving too much away
Right.
because it's on the first page, is the word echo.
Uh-huh.
So to deliver echo, she goes to a canyon, kind of at the edge of the world, and like everyone does when they see a place that will echo, she shouts the word echo, and it echoes, and so then that word is in the world. But then, yeah, I wanted there to be this other type of person who works for the committee, these diviners who have to actually mentally just find the word and write it down. Their whole process for doing that is kind of one of the secrets of the book, and it's something
Oh,
that
don't
isn't
give away. Yeah, don't give away.
yeah,
Just yeah.
yeah. I won't give away too much.
Yes.
But yeah, the idea that it was multiple people responsible for it, I wanted this to really feel like a community, almost the way like a community of writers or artists like
Mhm.
work together and get to know one another and like produce their work in concert. It's kind of like that, and they all live on a train together because that, as I was saying, I just love trains, and
Yeah.
so like my ideal community maybe if I could like live with all my friends on a train.
What item in your house that's not a person, that if you had the ability to rename, what would you rename and why would you choose that name?
Oh, wow. Wow. What would I rename? Um, That's so interesting. I mean, maybe because it's right in front of me, I'm thinking about my computer. I'm thinking about the sort of like my complicated relationship with this
Uh-huh.
machine, right? Like I do all this work on it, but it also provides endless distractions. Um, and I might like and computer is such a funny word because it's like I don't, I know it's doing a lot of computing to make things like our conversation happen, but I don't do a lot of computing with it. Like
Right.
I'm here using words. So maybe I would rename it like my word box or my
Nice.
something like that, just to, it's the place where the words go.
Now, if you could assign a magical power to this word box, what would that be other than the magic that it already does? Like it's very magical that everything that it does is magical, but would you give it a different type of magic?
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, maybe I like this idea. Maybe I would have it so that it kind of you know what would be nice is that if it were just uh not if it didn't have a physical presence actually, like if it was just kind of gone, but then
Mm.
when I needed it and when my brain was in the right place to do the writing, I would put my hands out like this and then it would just materialize, just poof into existence and then go away again as soon as I was done.
Nice, nice.
That's such a
So,
fun idea. Do you have a sense of what you would do with an
you know
object?
what? I thought about it when I was creating that question, and I thought, what would I rename? Probably my microwave. I was,
Yep.
I don't know what I would name it. Food monster, or I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe dragon, because it has a fire that I
Yeah.
can't see. And if you
Ooh,
stick,
I like that.
metal in it, you'll quickly see this this fire that you don't see any other way.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the dragon in the kitchen.
Nice. Now, with the book being out, have you had any readers or fans contact you and say, "Jed, I love the words that you use, but I wish you had used this word, and this is the reason why."
Oh, I don't think I've had that happen yet. I've had people I've had people start to read it and then contact me and say, I think this word is a word that's missing. And I want and don't tell me, they say, thankfully, because I want to find out if I'm right. Um, so that's been really fun. Like people kind of realizing what's not there and trying to guess. Um, I've had people ask me about favorite words, and whether I put them in, and trouble is one of them. I love the word trouble because it sounds like a bubbling,
Yeah,
that dangerous kind of feeling, and trouble, of course, is, such a good thing. I think we often need trouble in the world to
we
set things right.
do.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, but I have not yet had anyone tell me that there was a word they wished had been there. That would be interesting if that came up.
Do you see the naming song becoming a movie, or do you have you spoken with anyone about that, and what would that look like?
Yeah, I think it would take a director with a real vision because
Mhm.
in the book, when things are nameless, they're like hard to perceive. They're sort of almost beyond reach. And so how to represent that visually, I think would be an interesting but probably a really fruitful challenge. Like I think that could make a really fun thing to see in a film, like see a nameless thing become named and then
Mhm.
maybe come into focus in some way. Um, we've talked about it a bit. One possibility I think it would be really fun to see an animated version.
I was thinking, listen, that was,
Yeah.
did you see animated
Is that
go across
is
the
it just go
forehead?
across? Maybe I picked it up from you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was really influenced by a lot of animated stuff, especially like Studio Ghibli films like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, like those movies. So I would love to see an animated adaptation. That would be so fun.
Nice. I think that would be a perfect fit, an absolute perfect fit. Where are the readers able to connect with you and share words with you that
Yeah.
and just follow where you're going and what's going on in the life of Jed?
Sure, yeah. And I love hearing from readers. I love hearing how folks are thinking about the work. I'm on Instagram at Jedediah Berry. I am on Blue Sky increasingly at the same name. Um, and there's also on my website, which is thirdarchive.net, or if you Google my name, it'll pop up. I have a sign up page for a newsletter which I'm gearing up to use more. I want to write about fiction, but also write about games because I really love board games and role-playing games. So I'll probably talk about the intersections of those things.
I know that there is yet an unnamed or undisclosed named novella that's coming out late 2025, early 2026. How excited are you about this project? And without giving anything away, what is it that we can look forward to discovering reading this new project?
Yeah. So I think that hopefully the title and the premise will be announced fairly soon. The book is done and just needs a little more revision. And excitingly for me, I think it looks like it might turn into a series that I'll get to do a few of these. So let's say like if you were to think about someone like Conan the Barbarian, but in a really nice suit,
Uh-huh.
um, having to like survive the strangeness of like upper crust society of Victorian London, um, you'd get a sort of idea of what might be in this book.
Ooh, nice. Okay, I'm loving that. So we've come to the part of our show that I call one for the road, which really I should call several for the road, where I ask you a series of this or that questions, and you select one of the two that most resonates with you. So, talk with animals or speak all human languages?
I'm gonna say talk with animals.
Nice. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be so great. And animals are all over the world, so if I can talk to them, I'm always good.
Yes. Time travel to the past or to the future?
Hmm. I think I would go to the future. Yeah, yeah. I'd like to see where we're headed.
Yeah. Yes, I know where we're heading to needing
Yeah.
to discover new names.
Yes.
Live in a tree house or a floating castle?
Hmm. Treehouse for
Treehouse.
sure.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I love I spent a lot of time in tree houses as a kid.
Nice. Always whisper or always shout?
Hmm. Whisper.
Whisper.
Yeah.
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 And the last one, be the hero of your favorite book as a child or the villain?
Interesting. I think I'm just too much of a goody two shoes, and I gotta stay with hero.
Yeah, I thought you would say be the villain, give you a chance to be on that other side.
No, it's true. It would be interesting. You know, I like bumbling heroes, so I would probably be, a very bumbling sort of character. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
Jed, thank you so much for joining me. This has been fantastic, and I look forward to having you to come back once your 2025, 2026 novella is the secrets are
Yeah.
released.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.